Hey, how you doing today? I am Tequila Coleman. In today's video, I'm going to answer another question from our Community for God Ordained Spouse Facebook group. So here's the next question. If your person marries another, will they face judgment or will God allow them to live happily ever after? God allowed Bathsheba and David to be together even after adultery and murder. Can this happen with marriages today? So let's talk about it. And let me just say this right up front. With a God ordained marriage, God chooses one spouse, okay, to be with the other spouse. David had many wives. So this isn't a God ordained marriage story. Okay. Now, the story of David and Bathsheba, David committed adultery with Bathsheba. He also was participating in idolatry. Okay. And he murdered her husband, Uriah, because he was trying to, when he committed adultery with Bathsheba, she ended up pregnant. He tried to send her husband home, so that he could be intimate with his wife. He was trying to cover up that pregnancy, but Uriah was so loyal, he stayed. He wanted to, continue to fight the battle, and help David. So David arranged for Uriah, to go to the front of the line, and he ended up getting murdered. Okay. Now, the Lord sent Nathan to rebuke David. Okay. Now we about to, hear how the Lord dealt with David. The Lord sent Nathan to rebuke David. And then the Lord also basically told Nathan to deliver to David that the baby that Bathsheba is carrying will die. Now, the reason why that baby died is because, number one, the wages of sin is death. Okay. Number two, the reason why Nathan was sent to rebuke David, because David came in and he came or interfered with God's covenant between Bathsheba and Uriah. And then also, like I said, David, he rolled over into idolatry. And when you roll over into idolatry, you also now is serving another God. Okay. So so long story short, after the baby passed away, that's when, because the baby passed away, her husband is dead. And so David took Bathsheba on as his wife, and then she ended up getting pregnant again, and God allowed that. God allowed David to take Bathsheba on as the wife, for his reasons. Okay. And he allowed Bathsheba to birth Solomon because that's who God made his covenant with. Okay. So again, we can't use this story to apply to a God ordained marriage. Okay. Because God chooses one spouse. David had many spouses. So his life isn't a God ordained love story. Now, so we see the judgment, we see the wrath of God taking place in this story between David and Bathsheba. Okay, we see the wrath taking place. All right. So going back to your question, if your person marries another, will they face judgment? Or will God allow them to live happily ever after? No, everything is about scripture. Everything is about which principles in the Bible are you activating, because whichever scriptures in the Bible, we're activating, engaging in, it's going to determine whether or not you live a blessed life or a cursed life. Okay. So this is why in First Corinthians chapter 7, and let me just pull this up right quick. In First Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10, it say, to the married, I give this command, not I, but the Lord. A wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband. And a husband must not divorce his wife. This verse, these two verses right here, verse 10 and 11, is referring to a God ordained marriage. The reason why it's saying a wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried. The reason why I say that is because if she divorced her husband, her God ordained husband, who God joined her with, and she go and marry someone else, she is now marrying someone else's husband. She is now committing adultery, okay, because that's not her God ordained spouse, right? So again, if a God ordained spouse chooses to go and marry a counterfeit, then they are going to come up under the curses for disobedience. Okay. And Deuteronomy 28 spells out the curses for disobedience. And then, curses for disobedience, we don't automatically see these curses play out in our life. Sometimes it takes months or even years later before, you begin to see, these curses now playing out in your life. Okay. So that's my answer. If your God ordained spouse end up marrying a counterfeit, yes, they are going to come up under a curse. Okay. And the curse is going to play out in that marriage. Okay. Judgment, if God decide to, release judgment upon this individual, then judgment will be there. Okay. But we have to understand that this story of David and Bathsheba, that's not a God ordained love story. Okay. Because he had many wives. All right. So that is my response. I am Tequila Coleman. I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.